Let's wait a few more minutes for the other persons could have. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming to our workshop, IPv6 Independence Day, Rest in Peace, IPv4. We are very grateful to IGF for this opportunity to discuss the future of the Internet. Also, I would like to thank the panelists for accepting our invitation, and NIC.br and CGI.br for supporting us in our research. Well, my name is Eduardo Barazal Morales, and I am the coordinator of the Autonomous System Training Area at NIC.br. And here, I will be the moderator for this roundtable. We will also have my colleague, Thiago Jun Nakamura, moderating the online participation. So let me introduce our 6 panelists. First, we will listen to Ms. Berger from the German government. Then we will have Mr. Moreiras from the Brazilian technical community, followed by Mr. Susi, who will represent the French government. Next, Mr. Tamon will bring us the African technical community's view. And finally, we will have 2 remote panelists, Mr. Legris from the Moroccan civil society and Mr. Howard from the American private sector. So this is how we have planned this roundtable. I will start with a short introduction to the theme. Then each panelist will have up to 10 minutes to present their points of view. After that, we will have 20 minutes for the panelists to debate among themselves, as well with the audience, through the open microphone. And we will finish with wrap-up and conclusions. So let's start our introduction. Currently, we have 2 versions of the Internet Protocol, version 4, or IPv4, which has address exhaustion issues, and version 6, or IPv6, which is the newer version developed to substitute IPv4. However, even though IPv6 has been around for 20 years, its usage is still very low. And that's what this graph made by Google shows. The green line represents the percentage of users that access Google over IPv6. And as you can see, only 30% of this traffic is running over IPv6. This means that 70% is still using IPv4. So looking at this graph and knowing that Google is a huge internet company, it would probably be safe to infer that most of the internet traffic is still running the old version IPv4. However, IPv4 days are numbered, as the other graph shows. The different line shows the number of IPv4 addresses left in each region of the world. As you can see, all the regions are suffering from IPv4 exhaustion. Probably in less than 2 years, there will be no more IPv4 address left to be assigned. So we will need to migrate to IPv6 soon if you want to guarantee the stability of the internet. And we are here to discuss how and when the preparation for this transition can be done. So here are 3 policy questions to guide our discussion. First, when would the ideal time be to transition from IPv4 to IPv6? Second, what role would each stakeholder play in that transition? And third, how can we plan this transition without affecting internet governance principles, taking into account security, stability, and resilience of the internet? So now we are going to hear our specialists. We will start with Ms. Berger. So please.
Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself. Yes. I'm working for the Ministry of the Interior in Germany for years, and I care about the deployment of IPv6 since 10, 12 years. This is a big issue in the public administration of Germany. And let me mention one thing first. In my opinion, we do need more attention for the theme or for the topic of infrastructure development. All applications, services need reliable infrastructure and networks, and these topics need more awareness in the IGF and in the discussion, in the political discussion. And so I want to introduce our IPv6 and IPv4 strategy of the public administration of Germany. Our strategy for the usage of IPv6 and IPv4 in the public administration has many points of view. Public administration has to provide its IT services for everyone who needs access to the service in Germany themselves and abroad. We have to implement and to provide these services without discrimination against any part of the society. Our goal is maximum accessibility. And one next goal is to introduce IPv6 only and get rid of IPv4, but not everywhere. IPv4 is disabling, must not lead to a digital divide. After the German Constitution, we grant federal independence for authorities. Therefore, my opinion, or our opinion, is to implement IPv6 is not just to switch on IPv6 and to switch off IPv4. We have to mention and to aware a lot of other themes we have to care about. How to put the V6, V4 strategy into action? The public administration has to lead by example. Activities to support the introduction of V6 in the German public administration are: we run a local internet registry, including special organization. In case of the federal state, our constitutional rights, we set up sub-LAR structure. So is every organization able to do their own technical implementation after a framework we discuss in a multi-stakeholder issue. We have a /23 IPv6 address space, and we have a corresponding address plan. We set up a public administration information network, and we launch an IPv6 master plan for the federal public administration. First, I can introduce a short view to the LAR. We're running this local internet registry common with our provider, that's the BDBOS. It's our operative part of the LAR, and the strategic part is in the ministry themselves. We provide every sub-LAR address space for running their IT infrastructures. We separated our address plan after federal states and the federal government, and you can see this just an overview how we implemented our address plan. As a very interesting and new subject in our digitization program, we are going to set up our public administration information network. In our opinion, network infrastructures are essential for the public administration. We need strong security and high availability for all use levels. In the moment, we consolidate networks to respond to the threat level, to prevent future attacks, to create transparency and reduce complexity. The next step, an important step, is to enable the federal infrastructure, and we set up an IPv6 master plan with ad hoc activities, with a migration strategy, we figured out migration areas, and we do a lot of things around security and procurement issues. This master plan, we set up the federal infrastructure, is not only with the focus on infrastructure themes. We also have to mention that the human resources, the skills, the knowledge, the training, but also the contracts and procurement issues are very important to set up the infrastructure issues. These all is with our view to set up these new things, and I want to hear your response to our way forward to implement IPv6, and I'm happy to hear your comments. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Ms. Berger. Then we will have Mr. Moreiras from the Brazilian technical community.
Good morning. Greetings, everyone. It's very good to see you here. And it's good to see you interested in IPv6. Not everyone can see the importance of IPv6 yet, as you see. I said that yesterday, the IGF network, I mean the Wi-Fi network we are using, the internet connectivity that we have here is limited, since we do not have IPv6 connectivity. This is totally unexpected in the Internet Governance Forum network, and it is really, really a shame. The IPv6 network you can see in this room, as far as I know, is not provided by IGF organization, but by a highly enthusiastic person in this same room. I don't know who. Yeah, you? No. Well, I want to talk about IPv6 transition. I remember about 10 years ago, there was a discussion regarding if we should talk about IPv6 transition or IPv6 deployment. And then it was mostly agreed that we should call it IPv6 deployment, because in those distant days, the level of understanding about IPv6 was so low by network operators that some of them could think they should turn off IPv4 immediately at the same time they were deploying IPv6, and it would be a complete disaster. So the word deployment started to be used, because it was better to teach the network operators what they should do in the short term. And I ask, and now, did we forget that we are really in a transition to IPv6? Did we forget that keep IPv4 working adding NAT, adding CGNAT, all this was part of a strategy in the way to an IPv6 only internet. Did you forget that? Or are we not talking of a transition anymore? IPv4 and IPv6 maybe are going to coexist forever and ever. Well, for the Internet Architecture Board, it seems to be clear. In a statement made in 2016, IAB says the IAB expects that the IETF will stop requiring IPv4 compatibility in new or extended protocols. Future IETF protocol work will then optimize for and depend on IPv6. We recommend that all networking standards assume the use of IPv6 and be written so they do not require IPv4. We encourage the industry to develop strategies for IPv6 only operation. So, according to Internet Architecture Board, our goal is still an IPv6 only internet. But I think it's not clear for all the people involved anymore. In preparation to this panel, we organized a survey among ISPs in Brazil, asking some questions about the transition. We had 116 responses, and one of our questions was if IPv4 would be turned off in the internet, specifically in BGP routing systems someday. About 40% said no. The main justification is the legacy equipment. 40% of the Brazilian ISPs, according to our survey, do not think we will be able to solve the problem of legacy equipment. So IPv4 will be present forever in the internet. We also see a growing market for IPv4 addresses. This marketing is succeeding in bringing to the routing table addresses that before were not being used. The recovering process of the RIRs was not so successful in the same task. But this market is also lowering the pressure to IPv6 deploying. It is slowing down IPv6 adoption, or it could be at least. I think the IPv4 market can be good at short term for ISPs, companies, the economy, whatever. But if we still have the purpose of getting an IPv6 only internet, it's very difficult to me to believe that the IPv4 market will help us with that. I've heard some very complex arguments on the contrary, but I'm not convinced. In the last year, IPv6.br completed 10 years. IPv6.br is the name of the set of NIC.br initiatives and projects to foster IPv6 deployment in Brazil. And we had a special technical conference to celebrate the anniversary. And in this conference, we organized a panel called IPv6 Deployment Challenges and IPv4 Shutdown. It was supposed to be just a tease, a provocation. We did not really expect that the speakers invited would have anything to say about IPv4 sunset. But we were wrong. One of the speakers that was from one of the biggest ISPs and telecom operators in Brazil, had a very solid and detailed plan of how its network would be evolving, how would be the evolving steps of its networks from the current state of dual stack to a future IPv6 only. I was very surprised, I was very impressed. But should I be impressed? Probably no. All network operators should be doing this kind of planning. So bringing this theme to IGF is not other provocation, it's a call for action. We are talking about one net. Then we must have one vision. We must have one vision, one shared vision about how our internet will evolve technically. Are we still going to an IPv6 only internet? Can we agree with that we are on a transition to IPv6 and not simply on an IPv6 deployment? If so, then someday we will have an IPv4 sunset. IPv4 will be turned off in the internet. So why do we create efforts that could lead in other direction, such as the IPv4 market? So why we are not discussing strategies for IPv4 sunset? There are so many questions we could be asking and answering in the way to the IPv4 sunset. Why IPv6 is not yet deployed? It is still lack of support in equipment. It is still lack of knowledge or understanding. Should it be enforced by laws or regulations? Should we have a coordinated shutdown, for example, a specific date or a specific condition? What the steps to do it without break anything on the internet? I don't know the answers. I'm not even sure about the questions. But we should start talking about this, and it's why we are here, and it's why we organized this workshop. So thank you, obrigado, dank.
Thank you, Mr. Moreiras. That was very interesting. Now, Mr. Soucy from the French government will speak.
Thank you very much. I'm Sami Soucy. I work at ARCEP, which is the French telecom regulator. And I work at the Open Internet Unit. And one of our missions is to accelerate the transition in France. So if we can start the presentation. Okay. So, as you can see, and it's not a surprise, Europe is currently experiencing a shortage of IPv4 addresses. It's not a surprise. It's not the RIPE NCC that would say the opposite. So, but don't worry, the internet won't break and it won't stop functioning. But if you care about internet growth, you should start worrying. So, like here, most of the actors are thinking about keeping IPv4, and here I mention why keeping IPv4 is not a good idea. The options to keep IPv4 scalable are mainly two. It's either we buy IPv4 on gray market or we rent IPv4, or we use a carrier-grade NIT to share IPv4 addresses between several customers. Both options may be harmful because for buying IPv4, and here I'm mentioning example that we're facing in France. For buying IPv4, we see like there are certain services are being blocked, video streaming banking services, due to a temporary wrong geolocation when IPv4 addresses are acquired. For example, when we acquire IPv4 that geolocated in Latin America or in other places, and then we use them in France, those services may be blocked temporarily, and it can be like damaging for end user and for the operators that acquired those IPv4. It's also creating potentially a sizable barrier for new entrant and small actors due to the increase of price of IPv4. Now an IPv4 costs more than $20. And sometimes players prefer buying IPv4 instead of deploying IPv6 that is free. One other reason that buying IPv4 may be harmful, it increases the risk of seeing an internet split in two at a certain time. For example, when we have small actors that would be obliged to have IPv6 only hosting, and then they won't be able to be accessed by endpoints that are IPv4 only. For the second option, which is using CGNs, first, it prevents certain types of internet services, for example, controlling smart home systems, online gaming, from functioning properly. And we see this mainly with many gamers that are alerting about the fact that if they are behind the CGN, they won't access all their ports. Thus, they won't not be able to play their favorite game. Second, it makes it difficult to identify suspects in jurisdictional investigations like terrorism, cyber pedopornography. That's why, like Europol, are interested in promoting IPv6 in order to help them detect those kind of communication and people that are interacting within like pedopornographic forums, and their level of detection is very low due to the CGNs. And the third thing is the blacklisting issues. If one address behind the CGN is blacklisted from a certain service, for example, banking service, due to security reasons, it may lead to blacklisting of all machines that are behind the CGN. And like as we see those issues, as a regulator, we think that there is only one option that needs to be done, is to accelerate this transition in order to guarantee the openness and the growth of internet and avoiding the issues of IPv4. So now I will be speaking mainly about the work that we're doing actually in order to promote IPv6 in France, either through publishing a barometer and increasing transparency about this transition, or federating the community in a multi-stakeholder approach. But before, let's talk about the transition on itself. Like when we went from NCP to IPv4, it happened in one day. This is not possible with IPv6 because of the complexity and the size of internet today. So we started the transition in 2003, but now we're still at the beginning of the cohabitation phase, and that's why we need to generalize the deployment of IPv4 with IPv6 with IPv4 in all parts of internet value chains in order to start to speak about IPv4 fading out and a real transition. So we're still at the beginning, even if we're more than 15 years after. And it's kind of alarming. And as you can see in this figure that I don't see that well because it's far, we show the different state of the transition of the different stakeholders in France. And as we can see, there are some bottlenecks, which are mobile operators, hosting providers and CAPs, and information system for enterprise and administrations, but also IoT. So let's start by speaking about our barometer. I will go briefly. It's a report of 30 pages that you can find online at our CEP website, but I will bring some highlights here in order not to spend too much time talking about it. And we collect information directly from operators, and also AFNIC, which manage the CCTLD of France, that provides us information also about the hosting part. So what we do here is what we call data-driven regulation. And in other terms, it's name and shame, or name and shine, depending on where you are on the podium. And as you can see, we have two operators, Free and Orange, that are more than almost 70% of clients that are activated. Here we are at the fixed network. And something to mention that is interesting is for Free, for example, they installed the new firmware on the vast majority of their boxes in May 2019. and they removed the ability of deactivating IPv6, which significantly increases the use of IPv6 in France. And like we encourage this kind of approach. And here the four main operators on their fixed line network, they have provided forecasts of for the percentage of customers that are IPv6 enabled. And as you can see, for some operators, the evolution does not answer much to the IPv4 shortage. And this year, in order to improve our monitoring, we enlarged the scope of the gathering to add operators that have between 5,000 and 3 million of customers. And as you can see, we only have like 4 operators that are, 3 operators that are doing IPv6 today for small operators that are Coriolis, Canet, and OVH. And even though Europe is currently experiencing this shortage, like some operators still have no plan to deploy IPv6 on fixed network, which is like, as I said before, it seems problematic. Now, if we focus on mobile, here we tried to divide by APN. We did Android tethering, data only, and iPhone. And then, as you can see, we only have like 2 operators that are starting activating IPv6, mainly on Android, and for iPhone, it started like in September 2019. It doesn't mention it here because the figures are of the month of June. So we have Bouygues Telecom and Orange that made a remarkable push on iPhone in September 2019 with 68% and 30% of IPv6 ready at the end of October. And they provide us also the forecast, and same thing for the operators between 5,000 and 3 million. And as you can see, even more than on the fixed lines, the pace on mobile network future deployment is very likely to slow down the transition. And in order to better orient the customer, we added in our barometer the devices that are IPv6 enabled per default by the operators in their last software update. So the list is available on our barometers. And something to add also on the mobile part, mainly to speak about 5G. In the last procedure for awarding licenses to use frequencies in the 3.4, 3.8 gigahertz band in metropolitan France, which would be used for 5G, we added the sentence that the license holder must make its mobile network compatible with the IPv6 protocol by 31st of December 2020. And the goal is mainly to ensure the interoperability of service and not slow down the use of service available only on IPv6. So like through this window of frequency attribution, we added the obligation of IPv6 compatibility, which if we say it's for the 5G APN, it will be also for 4G and 3G, so it will increase significantly the compatibility on mobile network. So if we go to the hosting services, which are one of the main bottlenecks in France, it continues to have like a slow pace of transition. And as you can see, only 27% of the top 730 of websites visited in France are IPv6 enabled. And if we see the most visited web pages, as Cisco mentions through Alexa top 730, this number grows to 62%, which shows that it's mainly the bigger websites that are on IPv6. If we focus on the French top-level domain, we only have 15.5% in IPv6, and as you see in the schema at the top, the level of growth is quite slow. And what we wanted also is to do some name and shame for hosting providers. And as you can see, there is only one EONOS that has like more than 75% of IPv6 enabled website, and all the others of top 10 for French top-level domains have less than 10%. And in the barometer, we put figures for the top 30. Same thing for mail hosting, that probably it's even slower than web hosting, and the situation is quite alarming, with only 5.8% in IPv6 for MX. And this lag and this slow pace of the transition of this section of internet value could force IPv4 to be kept longer than expected, which will result in more costs, etc. So the transition, as we said before, should be done on a different level and in a harmonized way. And one more or less positive point is DNS infrastructure with 78% activated in IPv6, and with the same approach we differentiate with the different hosts. So where does France stand? Like if we take a look at the figure, like we started in 2003 and until 2016, thanks to the deployment of Free, we stayed at 5% of users. Then when Orange started deploying, we started growing, and then there was some initiative from Bouygues Telecom and Bouygues Telecom at the mobile level. And then, as you see, on May 2019, as I said before, right after the activation per default in all three boxes of IPv6 and removing the possibility of disabling IPv6, like France percentage of users grew to 36% today. And then in the barometer, we compare also those different statistics, either use or content and transit providers with different countries. And even if the situation is not that great, but we try to find positive things, like France today is like in the first position in Europe after Belgium, Germany, and Greece. And, but it's not ranking between countries. It's even the first countries is at more or less 50%, which is not necessarily enough. And I think that everyone in this room is agreeing with me. So we need to accelerate and do more things. And now I will talk about our IPv6 task force in France to finish my presentation. And in this task force, we try to gather all stakeholders in France in order to accelerate and fluidify the transition in France. So, I don't see the slide there. Okay, so what happened in 2016 is that we gave a report to the government about the deployment in France. And we proposed different number of actions. One of the actions was to setting up a barometer, but another action was to set up appropriate place for discussion. That's why last year we did an IP Love 6 workshop, and we had like several problems raised explaining the delay of the transition to IPv6, like lack of training, quality of service issues, security issues, etc. You can find the summaries available on our CEP website, but also there were suggested courses of actions in order to accelerate. And that's why we set up an IPv6 task force that was launched 2 weeks ago. This task force is in partnership with Internet Society. We involve different stakeholders. We have ISPs, big ISPs, small ISPs, hosting providers, IXPs, public administration companies, equipment suppliers. And it's important for us to gather different stakeholders that are involved in this transition. And the objective, as I said before, is to accelerate the transition through, one, facilitating information and best practices sharing between different stakeholders, and two, working on concrete deliverables to help different actors in their transition. And in addition to physical meeting, also, there is a project to put an online platform in order to synchronize the work and to prepare the different deliverables between the different stakeholders. And it's not RCEP or Telecom Regulator or Internet Society Task Force. It's the community task force, so the priority of action to be implemented are defined in consultation with the community of participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Susi. Now we will listen to Mr. Tamon from the African Technical Community.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to start my presentation by sharing a certain proverb we have in Africa, and it says that unless a man is willing to plant a seed, knowing full well that he'll never sit under its shade, nor eat of its fruit, the village will never grow. Unless a man is willing to plant a seed, knowing that he'll never sit under its shade, nor eat of its fruit, the village will never grow. I want you to have this at the back of your mind as I speak, because we're going to circle back to it at the end. So what does it take for us to accelerate IPv6 deployment? And I speak from the perspective of, if Constance is an admiral in the army, think of me as the intelligence officer who's been on the battlefield, right? You know, more than 55 different countries, training more than 10,000 engineers. So I know that what it takes is just not more training, because people like to say, oh, training, it's just not more training. In Afrinic, for example, we've trained more than 10,000 people. So I can pretty much guarantee that in every single network operator on the continent, they have at least 4 people that we've trained. And I'm not talking about one-day PowerPoint shows, hands-on training. We know that it's just not more conferences. We've got the IPv6 World Conferences in France. We've got the Business Summit in Zurich. We've got several sessions at the IGF. It's just not that. It is definitely not more government policies or mandates, which we know have failed spectacularly as the US government. It is definitely not more incentives, which don't exist for now. It is definitely not more another search for the elusive business case, which is the management, which is for me is the mother of all management excuses, right? And definitely is not another wild goose chase of something we call killer applications. That's just plain lazy. Right. What it takes is decision makers who are willing to think beyond the short term, right? It's decision makers. Every single one of us works in a company. You know that engineers don't initiate change on a massive level. That's up to decision makers, right? So the problem we know is the skill exists, right? We know that the engineers are motivated because they are always going to be the ones who are saying, you know what, I want to do this thing, or they have proof of concepts in all of their labs, but the thing that is required to scale it to company level is outside their circles of influence. That's up to the decision makers, right? We know that it's not a lack of, other operators to emulate, from Liquid Telecom in Africa to Reliance Jio to Free in France to T-Mobile. There's lots and lots of different companies in every sector that have taken the plunge and have demonstrated that it can be done. The problem is simply that too many managers, too many executives, CTOs, CIOs, do not have the vision and are not willing to back the engineers to embark on IPv6 deployment projects. And because we know the number one reason for project failure in every kind of organization is what? Lack of management support. Because management support or executive support unlocks a trinity of things without which any project is doomed from the beginning. The first one is time. Engineers need time to work on IPv6 deployment projects at scale. Who controls the time? The decision makers. The second one is money. So if you're in Africa, you get training for free, but Afrinic isn't going to buy or replace equipment for you. or even if Africa is going to provide free training, you still need to sponsor yourself, flights and hotels. All of that money is controlled. The purse strings is controlled by the decision makers. And sometimes you might need to change equipment. And then finally, this is something we've seen in several of our workshops. 2 weeks later, some attendee would tell us, hey, I've gone back, I've deployed IPv6, I've got a prefix down. Then when we ask them, why haven't you pushed it to customers? They'll say, that is, it requires more resources, and I don't have the authorization to pursue that on my own. Right. So these are the three things that executive support, which can only come from decision makers, unlocks: time, money, and other people to work on the project. Right. So I think we all know here it's just not a matter of debate that IPv4 is ill-suited to the continued growth of the internet. So we know that IPv6, like a tree, is guaranteed to be good for the internet. And what's good for the internet is good for business. So the same exhortation to the African elder I mentioned at the beginning also applies to the decision makers, that until decision makers are willing to back projects whose benefits to their organizations are realizable in the next quarter or sometimes the next semester, only then can technology that we've outgrown, like IPv4, begin to wither, and only then can IPv6 get a chance to soar. And this perspective is what informs our strategy at Afrinic. Right. So we're going beyond training, and we're focusing on helping managers and policymakers understand the strategic impacts through action-oriented workshops. We call them hackathons, IPv6 action plan hackathons for governments, or deployathons, which is something we created for engineers. The idea is to shorten the time between learning and deploying from, say, 6 months or 6 years in some cases to, 5 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tamon. So now we're going to hear our remote panelist, Mr. Legri, from the Moroccan Civil Society.
Me. Thank you, Eduardo. You hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning for everyone. I am Sharqawi El-Gris from Morocco. I am member of Moroccan Internet Society, the ISOC chapter in Morocco. I am also a member of task force in IPv6 in Morocco, and I am also IT professor at University of Casablanca. So sorry, I am surprised to hear that in IGF there is no IPv6. I think that this meeting will be the first to encourage the IPv6 initiative. I hope that the next meeting can take this point of importance. So, when we speak about IPv6 and the old version IPv4, I think there is no choice to move to IPv6. We have a good issues. We have a IPv4 address exhaustion. This is a big issues that should impose the movement, the transition in IPv6. So the important question: what is the ideal time to stop IPv4? I think that we should have a new services We waiting the 5G ones, for example, the IPTV, the future services, which impose to be connected in IPv6. I think that's the most important is to have the new services just with IPv6. Also, I think that the arrival of IoT with several thousand of objects to be connected in internet should be also a most reason to make stop IPv4 because we could not address all objects in the future internet. So now, how do we prepare technically? I think that the first thing to signal is there is no fixed day. There is no predefined days to move to IPv6. IPv6 is a big project. Is not an update of IPv4. We should take a big time to pass to move to IPv6. All stakeholders in every country should work together to succeed this big project. For example, all government in every time, in every country should take action plans with the deadline, with the defined action, with the everyone, every other stakeholders to migrate to IPv6. Also, in the ISP side, in the operator side, they should initiate the IPv6, the new IPv6 services. Waiting the users, waiting the need users is not a good idea. We should to initiate the need in the users. We should create a new services to invite users after to use IPv6 services. In the academic side, I think that we should initiate a lot of sessions to have more skills in the IPv6 users. We have more training. We have more academic modules in university, in training organization. In the community technical, I propose also to have a more infrastructure in IPv6, a more technology in IPv6, a more equipment with IPv6 in the internet infrastructure. Now the plan to transition. I think that this project we will have more time to this transition. We should take in more time to this transition. This is, as I said, is a long and a big project. We should work together to succeed this project. Another point is we should have a more consensus. We should realize a more consensus with all stakeholders in each country. And we should to work together to go ahead in IPv6. And also we should to satisfy all IPv6 needs in infrastructure, in users, in the services, and so on. In Morocco, I salute the initiative to make a project to plan the migration IPv6 3-4 years ago with a study with all operators in Morocco and all actors, civil society, technical community, academic, and so on. This study will go with to specify all needs in IPv6 and to give more idea or to plan the migration in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Legris. Unfortunately, we had a problem with the other remote panelist, Lee Howard. So let's start our open microphone session. So are there any comments from the audience, the speakers? Please.
Rajesh Charya from India. Till yesterday, I was knowing that we are the largest percentage-wise of IPv6 deployment in India. But yesterday, I was updated that in percentage, Germany is way ahead to India. But in the user-wise, India is the largest user base of IPv6 deployment. We can say that India is having around 65% rural user base. And the paying capacity of that rural person is very low. That's the reason the lifeline of the equipment which is being installed in anywhere into the country on account of broadband or mobile phone, the lifeline is very large. And in those phones, still IPv4 is working, IPv6 is not working. They cannot replace the equipment just to take the IPv6. That's one of the major challenge why we are right now limited to the user who are buying the new equipment. Secondly, the technical guy of corporates are not so encouraged. The major problem what they are facing is that the address is so long that they cannot remember. Like what they are simply remembering IPv4. They cannot remember the IPv6. And they have to change the equipment of the corporate's network, as well as their skill capacity. They want to use what they have. They don't want to use into the new. While lot of trainings, lot of workshops has been done by ISP Association to WIM, to which I am heading. But some discouragement is there till the time the IPv4 is not getting completely exhausted, and they have not left out to just to switch to IPv6 finally. Otherwise, till that time, it will work. For the startup, they require a small pool of /23 minimum. Because as far as I remember, in 2008, I moved the proposal into the APNIC for reducing the allocation size from /21 to /22. And around 2008, when the IPv4 exhaustion or IPv6 were just into the discussion, not in the serious talks. But still, the WhatsApp people are requiring a small pool to start up and to create the network and to understand the thing. So what I will say, no doubtly, we are welcoming the IPv6. We are deploying the IPv6. But at the same time, rest in peace, IPv4, I doubt.
So thank you very much for sharing that perspective. I just want to answer to one specific part about the concern of the network engineers and the length of the addresses. To make you understand this point, I want you to think about the world of a typist. The first time he stopped using a typewriter and got a computer. For so long as she kept, or he kept, using the mentality of a typewriter on a computer, she was never going to be getting value out of a computer. The exact same thing happened here. And I think it's important that the people who do training understand that we're just not trying to, take every single bad habit that they've learned, because lots of engineers all over the world have learned some terribly bad habits around IPv4, right? And every smart engineer I know understands that the half-life of your knowledge in IT is 2 years, which means if you don't learn new skills, you don't upgrade your skills in 2 years, you become irrelevant. The exact same thing applies to IPv6. Now, specifically to the length, one of the things we do at Afrinic is this, and we've demonstrated this over and over in deployment. That the length of an IP address being 120 bit, that's a $5 problem. Using an IP address management system and DNS as basic skills for a network engineer, that's a $5,000 problem. Please don't solve $5 problems.
You have answered to your own question and to my question. Smart technician. Some technicians who work as usual into the journal way don't want to change. But the smart, who really think of development and who really want to deploy the new technology into the network, they will definitely change, and they are changing. That's the issue, that few engineers who are not so smart, they just think whatsoever is going, let them go. They work according to that. That's the problem. At that time, the management of that corporate has to come forward. Why not deploy the new equipment and why not deploy the new technology into the network for the betterment? And we are encouraging, we are now directly talking to the corporate head for deploying the IPv6 into their network. When the service providers are not allocating further IPv4 to their demand, then automatically they are changing to IPv6.
I'd like to comment about the equipments. Because in the point of view of ISPs or the companies, it's really easy to solve because the equipments have obsolescence. So ISPs all the time come to us and say, well, I have a network and all our CPEs don't have IPv6 support. What can I do? It's very expensive to exchange all this equipment. So forget it. Forget your current network. Forget your current equipment. The equipment will be on obsolescence in 5 years, in 10 years maximum. Then you change it because of other reasons. You have to worry about the new networks. The ISPs are growing, are connecting new people. So let's not do new networks with IPv4 only. Let's do all the new networks, all the new implementations with IPv6. We started to do it in 1998. If we had done it, it would be already solved. It's not. So it's simple.
Just I'm correcting, all the ISPs in India are IPv6 capable and their network is IPv6 enabled. They are giving the IPv6 network to their customer. It is the discouragement from the customer side that the customers are not accepting IPv6 immediately till the time their requirement is not increasing. Like I have given the pool of /24 to one of my customer. The moment he will be demanding /23, I will regret him and saying that you have to come to the IPv6 and I will give you as number of as IPv6 to you for your network. Then they are changing. But till the time their network is small and their requirement is small, they are not so encouraged to change the network. All the service providers are there. One more problem is there. The wish of the government should also come forward. The moment they will make mandatory that all the payment gateway, all the bank, railway, airlines has to be IPv6, drastically there will be a change into the network that the user, when the user will not be able to access through IPv4, so they have to forcefully change to IPv6. So it is the government initiatives that should come by mandating them that all this application will be on IPv6 only, not IPv4. Because still a lot of banks and payment gateways are there who are accepting IPv4.
Okay, so within Africa, there are at least 15 governments that have gone down the route of mandates. And just like the US government, they've failed spectacularly. That's because government has two weapons in its toolkit. There's regulation and mandates, but the other one that I don't think that most governments understand is the power of the economic incentive. Let me finish. If there's one thing every operator will tell you, the government is not a stakeholder of my network. Do not tell me. The government does not help pay customers. The government does not buy me equipment. The government cannot tell me what is in my commercial best interest. However, the government, I think this is something we are trying to get more governments in Africa to do. In almost every country, government is a huge buyer of ICT services. So maybe governments could consider using the power of incentives, because here's what we find. These same governments that go, deploy IPv6, they themselves don't have IPv6 on their network. And so that brings a problem of credibility. Why are you trying to get me to put a mandate to deploy technology that you yourself are not doing? So, I mean, if you find an example in the world where mandates have worked, I'll be glad to know. But I can guarantee you, all those that have tried haven't. Maybe it's time to try something else. And the power of the economic incentive. Because imagine what would happen if the Indian government, rather than saying, X date, we are going to, banks should do, what if the Indian government said, in 5 years' time, any contractor who does not have full support for IPv6 will not get an Indian government contract? You're not forcing anyone. You're going to make people to do the right thing for themselves. I think that might be more effective and cause a lot less rancor.
We have to understand one thing. In India, the literacy level is very low. And the new user base who is coming from the rural side is no doubtly illiterate in education, but digitally literate. In democratic style of India, our government cannot force. One more thing we have to understand, the politicians who are running the government are not at all a technology guy. They don't understand, and they don't want to compel anything so that politically they are into the bad name.
Please, Ms. Berger.
Yes, you are all right, but it's not false and it's not right. For our perspective, we have an interest to guarantee national sovereignty. Therefore, we are going to run our own network infrastructures. So we are not just a buyer for IT. We are running IT ourselves, and therefore we are interested in to implement IPv6. The problem is we are a federal state, and after constitutional rights, the countries and municipalities can do after the constitution their own decision. And what we can do, we can bring in knowledge and training and convince them to integrate IPv6. And we can have that discussion. To implement IPv6, it's not just running IPv6. It's a question of implementing new structures, the chance of having new ideas, new more transparency, to bring in more national sovereignty. All these facts are more political than just implementing and buying one infrastructure element or a device or to order a new provider. These are more features. That's our point of view.
Just to add several points, to start with the compatibility issue, etc. We don't care about compatibility, we care about activation. And we don't wait for clients to ask for activation. Activation, like in our perception, should be done by operators or hosting providers. That's the first
We've already
point.
done.
Sorry?
We are fully, all the service providers are compatible and giving the services in IPv6.
Yeah,
Even
but
their own NOx network is running on IPv6. And the customers who are demanding, they are, well, the new customers who are coming to the network, they are going to the IPv6 only.
Yeah.
We are only much concerned with the few old customers who are not changing. Until the time they will not
You're
change,
speaking
we
about
will not
mobile
withdraw.
network? Mobile network, fixed network?
हाँ, mobile network. Around, मतलब कि Reliance Jio is 100% IPv6, and the Vodafone and the Airtel is now almost 70 to 80% is the IPv6 network.
But in general, it will be just a matter of time. The time those devices won't be no longer be in the network.
Only
so.
the rural portion of the country who are not buying, they are buying the refurbished equipment. By default, they have to go with the IPv4.
Yeah, but,
And the service provider cannot overlook those customers in the present time when we are struggling for the ARPU.
And to come to the second part of coercive approach, oblige this transition, or even adding some incentives, etc. In general, like incentives may be nice to have, but it's not like mandatory in order to at least do 90% of the transition. It's more the end of the transition where maybe this coercive or this incentive may lead to finish the transition. But in general, for example, as I take the example of France, because that's what we're doing, we, other than what we did for 5G where we asked for compatibility, what we're doing is data-driven regulation. We're showing transparency about what actors are, one. Second, we're talking to them to show to every stakeholder where is the interest of transiting. And by talking, there is like a psychological thing where people are afraid of something they don't know yet. Let's put it this way. And it can be directly linked to the training issues and the fact that as soon as they are reassured about the quality of service issues, security issues, how they should handle that and that aspect, filtering aspect, etc., it may lead like those operators to put up in place their transition.
Compare the size of the population, base of the user base of the country. Changing all the user and the size of the population will always be a challenge for implementing anything to that country.
So I've heard a similar argument quite a lot throughout our continent as well. And I think this is one of the mistakes that decision makers and policy makers, we have to deploy IPv6. It is completely different from we must get IPv6 to every single citizen on the same day, right? Every project manager understands the importance of a phased approach. Phase one could simply be, let us get IPv6 in government infrastructure for the next 2 years. No operator needs to deploy IPv6 every single part. You could do your data center while leaving broadband. You could do mobile network while leaving the fixed network. It happens today. So quite frankly, my experience has been that most of the managers who say, oh, I can't do it because every single device on my network is not ready, every single user is just looking for an excuse. People who want to do it will find something that you can do. It's the small wins. It's the small wins, rather than thinking that you can do every single thing everywhere at the same time. For me, that's the mother of all excuses. So let's find something that we can do. It is possible to find that in every single case.
I think Mr. Legris wants to say something. Mr. Legris? Mr. Legris.
Hi. I want to thank Mukong. He's a great expert in IPv6 in Africa and helps everyone for us to develop more skills in IPv6. in my point of view, government do not have the task in IPv6 implementation, but the operator have it. The operator says that they have IPv6, but there is not a lot of need in user side. I think that all the logic, because the operators should create the need in users. The operator expect that users should request IPv6 services. In a logical commerce, in a purely commercial logic, the user nowadays is waiting to propose for him the new services. And the operators should push in this orientation to implement and propose the new service in IPv6. I think that finally it's clear that if the operators want it, we should have the new services, and implementation begins tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone. We don't have more time to debate. So to conclude our session, again, I would like to thank you all for coming. When we proposed this discussion, we didn't expect to set a specific date for this transition, but we wanted to raise awareness of all the problems that we might have if we don't start to plan, to think about this transition. So as you can see from all the panelists' speeches, there is a lot of work to be done. We hope you have enjoyed. We hope to meet you again next year. Thank you. Rest in peace, IPv4.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Youth Coalition on Internet Governance session on youth participation at the IGF. Thank you all so much for joining us here today, and I am very pleased that you are able to come and join this session. I would like to start off telling you a little bit more about what the Youth Coalition on Internet Governance does. We are a dynamic coalition of the Internet Governance Forum, and we represent youth. We advocate for the youth voices at the IGF, but not only here, also internationally at other forums and stakeholder environments in which youth should be part of the negotiations, discussions, and policy-making proposal participation areas. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Nadia Chechia, and I represent the Western European and Others group for the Youth Coalition on Internet Governance. I am normally joined by steering members from the other regional groups who are unfortunately not able to make it today, but they send their best regards, and we hope that we have a fruitful discussion from all the different regions today so that we can ensure that that we manage to have a full and rich discussion that crosses borders and crosses sectors. One thing I wanted to share with you is what we have done at the Youth Coalition Internet Governance in the last few years. So what are our activities? It falls under kind of 3 areas that is related to what you put into this session today. Your comments, your thoughts, your ideas, your vision for the future, we bring that together and create a strategy, a plan and proposal of what we're going to do not only at the IGF, but also at other forums internationally. So we start with participation. Many of you are part of our youth expert list. At the IGF and other forums, we use this youth expert list in which young people can leave their expertise and their locations behind so that we can go up to session organizers and tell them, we have youth experts in your area working on your expertises and making sure that these youth experts are part of the panels, because we should have inclusive discussions in which young people are actually presenting the ideas that they're working with. The policy should not go about issues that we are implementing that we do not understand or that we don't have involvement in. So if you're not on our list, please do and make sure that you are on here. In terms of our outreach, when my mandate started in Geneva, one of our participants from NL IGF mentioned, we have these IGFs, these are so international, so global, but we always find that there is a lack of local youth being involved in the processes, whether or not as volunteers, whether or not attending all the different sessions. How is that possible that we're going to all these beautiful places, but the locals are not there? Youth should be able to travel just around the corner. So during Paris, we had an email campaign in which we reached out to all universities and schools in Paris to encourage them to come to the IGF and promote the IGF sessions, which are about youth and in which youth should be presenting ideas. And this was very, very good. But the issue that we faced there was in Paris, it was during school weeks. So young people couldn't attend because they had to attend classes and they were not able to get the opportunity to leave. And this was very unfortunate. However, during that year in Paris, the group raised that there needs to be more focus on girls' empowerment, girls' education, and access for people. So this year, our strategy outreach were to Sustainable Development Goals activists in rural and local areas. And what YSIG did is we supported applications, and not in a way in which we invited people, but we helped people write emails. We helped with market research on sponsorships. We helped with research on fundraising. We found ways on how to do interview preparations in their local environments. We connected people to internet governance organizations who are also coming, so they had the opportunity. We had 34 international applications from countries like Kurdistan, Maldives, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Burundi, and Bangladesh. But of all these different applications, of these 34, we had only one successful visa application. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you Umar Khan, who's coming here today from Pakistan. He's sitting over there. He is a youth activist that focuses on girls' empowerment and has an organization in which he empowers widows and orphans to meet their full potential. So we're very happy that you're able to come and overcome all the different hardships to still meet us here at the IGF. The third area that we worked on is partnerships and promotion. So we joined other forums and events to talk about youth participation in IGF. We also gave training on a variety of different issues in which they needed youth participants. But also the YSIC joins the dynamic coalitions meetings with the IGF Secretariat, in which we also organize and participate with the DC session, which happened yesterday, in which all the dynamic coalitions come together to present what we're working towards on a particular issue. So if you weren't able to join us yesterday, please have a look online to see how the dynamic coalitions are working together, because all our work as youth does fit in with all the dynamic coalition sessions that are happening. So in that regard, we can find opportunities in partnerships and collaborations that just go beyond just being youth, but also going into the topics and sectors. We are here to connect people. We are here to ensure that we can build partnerships and ensure that you have the access to the full potential, which is the IGF and other international forums. So please reach out to us if you wanted to work on projects or if you wanted to move forward. And I look very much forward to seeing what you can all achieve in your local environments, but also internationally. Having said all this, the internet governance area is so much more than just young people working on particular individual issues. And there are so many different forums that youth are participating in. In Europe, we have YouthDig, which is part of Eurodig. We have CDIG. We have youth IGFs. We have summer schools. And what we wanted to do today as part of this session is to bring that all together and look at the issues that youth in these regions have been presenting and focusing on and advocating for. And therefore, I would like to introduce to you our following speakers. We have two remote speakers today joining us from abroad. We have Ufa Modi from Digital Grassroots. She's calling us from Africa. And we have Ellen Kusuma from Youth IGF Indonesia, who's calling us from Indonesia. And right next to me, we have Marco Paloski, who is ambassador for CDIG. Next to Marco is Jan Donau. He is he's a participant of YouthDig. And Elisabeth Schauermann is the organizer of the Youth IGF Summit, which was hosted here in Berlin last Sunday. I look very much to hear about your interventions about what were the priority key topics and issues that you've presented in your areas. And I would like to look at our remote moderator to ask whether or not we can have Ufa on the line to present her ideas, starting with Africa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Good morning from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm so glad to be participating remotely in this session. And I hope all of you are having fun at the IGF. I'm Ufa Mode. I am Nigerian. I'm the co-founder and vice president of Digital Grassroots. And today I'll be highlighting some of the issues that youth from the African region face in their participation in internet governance, in the IGF, from my perspective as an African youth. You see, in the African region, we've already pretty much agreed that internet technology is extremely crucial to our developments in future. However, there's not much being done to ensure that the next generation of Africans are properly equipped with the knowledge required to build the healthy internet that we want. I'm talking about the African youth. African youth need to fully understand the core principles of the internet. It is going to be really hard for us to have any real development in the sector or in our participation if we are not aware of the issues. We need to understand all the issues of what are the key challenges to the IGF issues, openness, decentralization, digital inclusion, privacy, security. We need to fully understand what these issues are and how they affect us. In recent years, the African region has seen a lot of newcomers. Many of them are participating in the IGF there as well, but it's not enough. We need more experience to facilitate our participation in the global IG ecosystem. How exactly can we contribute to open standards development at the IETF, to IP resource management at AFINIC, to advocating for numerous digital rights and human rights online? We need that inclusion and experience. Unless we get this first-hand experience, it's going to be really hard for us to have more practical impact in the global space. And then for avenues to improve our involvement and our return rates to the IGF, that has to do a lot with understanding, like I said earlier. Unless we fully understand what these internet governance topics are, it's going to be very hard for us to make relevant contributions, because it's not enough to just say these buzzwords, new and emerging technologies, privacy, security, surveillance. They all sound really well, but what exactly are they? Do we really understand them, and how they affect our communities locally? And then talking about local participation, we should not only look at participating in the IGF on the global level. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in our local communities. I'm talking about national and regional participation. This year, we had in the African region, we had the African Youth IGF and the West African Youth IGF and the Nigerian Youth IGF. That has been really, really good for promoting the inclusion of Africans in internet governance. And then for our participation in the global IGF, that has to do with it's mostly facilitated by support to attend the global IGF. That is a very big problem for us here in Africa. And personally, there's been a lot of travel support from international organizations to facilitate this participation over the years, but it's not enough, because we need to have more local support. Youth, I'm talking to the African youth now. We need to show our local internet stakeholders our role in internet governance and what we can actually contribute to the global IGF. That way we can easily get funding and support to travel and participate in the IGF. And sometimes it's not only about getting this support. Another challenge that we face is visas. At the moment right now, I'm not at the IGF because I was not able to get my visa approved in time to travel. That is the reality of many African youth. I'm not quite sure how we can solve this problem, but I know for sure that if we communicate that this is a reality and it's a problem for us, and because it's not, when you hear attending an IGF meeting or an internet governance related public meeting, the first thing that comes to your mind shouldn't be, oh my gosh, will I get a visa to travel? So I'm not quite sure how we will solve this problem, but I'm sure that if we communicate the issues to the appropriate stakeholders, we would be able to come up with some sort of solution or avenues to explore to solve that problem. And then last but not the least, sometimes you can get all the funding, you can get your visas, but then participating in the event will be a challenge, because most of the IGF activities or some IGF activities may not particularly be tailored for youth participation. So IGF organizers and IGF activity organizers as a whole should always ensure that they have a youth agenda in their activity. It would make participation easier for youth if they can see a platform for them to actually contribute to the discussions. So I think that's something that all IG stakeholders can look into to see how we can facilitate that participation. But basically, yeah, I believe that the African youth have a lot to offer. We're smart, we're resourceful, and we just need support from our community and a platform to get our voices heard. So if we can get all this in the way, we can get all the opportunities for our participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspective. I really very much enjoy that you said that we are smart and resourceful, and I hope that we are able in the discussion afterwards to come together to find answers to some of the issues that you raised. I really appreciate how you called it the healthy internet, understanding the healthy internet. Raising the issue again of what is IG and how do we present that to stakeholders who are outside the IG sphere and encouraging those people to then fund participants. I see the issue as well with visas. Hopefully we can briefly address this, but this is generally quite out of our hands. But I really look forward perhaps to also opening further the discussion on how IGF activities are not tailored to youth participation because there is no youth agenda. So thank you very much for your comments. I would like to turn back to our remote moderator and ask her whether or not we can ask if Ellen Kusuma could join us, who is joining us from Indonesia.
Hello.
Hi, Ellen.
Hello. Okay, you can hear me. Can I get my presentation on the screen?
Someone is planning a really exciting adventure somewhere. Are we invited? Wonderful.
Okay.
We can see your presentation now.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity from YCIG so that we can, Indonesia Youth IGF can join the session. So you have posed 3 questions. I would like to address the third question first. Which challenges do youth face to attend and participate at the IGF? So the Indonesian context, Indonesian in average, next slide, please. Okay, so this is only a background. So in Indonesia, we have a large active internet user that in average spend around 8.5 hours every day in the internet. And in 2030, we will have like a demographic bonus, which means that youth will be the largest population in Indonesia. However, there is lack of youth representation that comes from inside the youth themselves, and also representation that actively participate and was involved in the discussion of internet governance in Indonesia. There is also on the other hand, Indonesian youth are very active in the internet and also an active social media users. That somehow they are aware on the internet policies, but however, the awareness comes from the controversies around the internet policies. For example, we have ITE law in Indonesia, which is regulating electronic transaction and negative content in the internet. But some of the articles in that law are potentially violating or restricting freedom of expression in Indonesia. So they are aware of somewhat aware of internet policies, but because the controversies. So they are not really aware on the internet governance ecosystem itself. So there is also an absence of aspiration platform for youth, so they can like have their aspiration to the multi-stakeholders of the internet governance. Next slide, please. So these are some issues that we have faced in Indonesia: the misinformation, the privacy violation, cyberbullying, hate speech, online SGDP, also content moderating in Indonesia. So youth mostly have concern on these several issues, especially right now is online SGDP, on the NCII, or non-consensual distribution of internet images. We have faced so many youth was a victim of online SGBV. Next. So this is the barriers. We have a very diverse socio-cultural background. If you know Indonesian map, we are archipelagos. We have like 17,000 islands in Indonesia. So yeah, there is also the wide range target age. So it's quite hard to reach all of it because the age gap, also the scarce knowledge on the internet issues. Because internet is almost about anything. And the disparities on internet connection because Java is like the most populated and like have the most internet infrastructure ready for the people inside to get access and so on. But like any other islands might not be so lucky. So what we do is we do the grassroots intervention. We reach out to them. We engage with the local community. We do the gathering with so many stakeholders. We also do online surveys and also information dissemination. Next. So your next question is how can we improve involvement and return rates of youth at the IGF? So from our experience is like more initiative, more awareness, more exposure, more collaboration, and switching to youth policy forum, and not taken youth only as a symbol, like just tokenism. That next slide, please. These is several activities that we have that we did, like we are having roadshow to 10 cities, 10 university and 10 cities in Indonesia to work on the general election issues with so many multi-stakeholders such as Google, Perludem, or Mavindo, organization that is working on hoax, busting hoax. But yeah, next activities. Next slide, please. So this is we are doing some survey that asks the youth to fill out our survey. This is about freedom of expression in the internet. So they most of the responders doesn't really feel safe on the internet and doesn't really aware on the internet policies. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is our activities on the national dialogue of internet governance. We have been there for 2 years. The participation is also lacking because this national dialogue only happened in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. Next. This is also a survey that we did on the privacy, talking about privacy and data protection in Indonesia. So basically, youth are aware of the internet policies, such like I said before, but the internet governance ecosystem, they are not really aware on how to reach out to that and like include or involve themselves in the discussion. Next. Yeah, this is also part of our activities with like universities, Google, and Facebook. We also talk about mental health in one of our activities because it's important. The youth face mainly cyberbullying in Indonesia. I think elsewhere will be kind of the same. Next. Okay, not that. I would like to address the third question. Which issues do you want to highlight as priority key points at the IGF to global stakeholders? So I'm hoping for a stronger regional solidarity and network for you to speak on because regional problem is different than the global. So that for a first. and then include and get youth to involve and not just a tokenism in every discussion. Like, for example, I read Brett Solomon have tweeted on the first day of the IGF 2019 on a topic of next generation internet. The panel is 8 white men and 1 woman only, without youth. So how do you speak on next generation internet but not involving youth at all in the discussion? So yeah, this is I would like for the global stakeholders to reach out to involve youth, and not for youth to just like ask for involvement. They need to actively involve youth in the discussion. That's the takeaway that I want to share in this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for your intervention. It was really interesting, all the points that you mentioned, and I really liked what you said about youth not as a symbol. Youth not as a symbol of just be put on a stage to make a 5-minute or 10-minute commentary, but then not actually engaging them is not conducive. It's just showing, oh yes, we ticked the box, we met the quota, we've done that, and now we are going to have discussions with everybody else. That's the points that you were making about that is very important, that the manner in which youth are being engaged is more actually engaging and involved. Youth are active internet users, and sometimes policymakers do not even understand the manner in which we as youth use the internet, and we come up with new innovations that they have never perceived. So policymaking is always one step behind. Policymaking does not prepare for what is coming into the future because they are always reacting to things rather than preparing for these things. And by engaging youth, perhaps they will be able to see in advance issues that are going to be raised in the future. And that also leads to a very important point you make in regards to controversies around internet policies and the lack of awareness of these policies and how that influences people and causes them to get into big problems. We then create an environment in which we are not really sure what's happening for ourselves and have consequences that we never envisioned would happen. So thank you very much for your interventions, and I'm very pleased that you were both able to join us remotely, and we would have loved to have you join us here, but perhaps we can see if the future in Poland will be brighter for us in terms of participation here face-to-face. I would like to go to our next speaker, Marco Pawlowski, who is a CDIC ambassador, please.
Thank you. Hey everyone, I'm Marco Pawlowski, coming from North Macedonia, and here I'm as a representative of CDIC community. I will briefly tell what CDIC is doing with the Youth School, which is for the youth people to get more involved in the internet governance, and shortly brief some of the problems we in the CEE Plus region are having with internet governance. So I would say that one of the problems that we are having is that many of the youth people and also everyone is not very aware about what is internet governance and what does it mean and how can they get more to change a little bit in the things. So this is a really big problem because a lot of the people, when you say internet governance are connecting with the government thing, and are not very, interested to do that. So that's one of the problem, awareness of the internet governance in our region. Second one, I would say that most of this region have national IGFs and some internet society chapters, but not all of them have this, and also not youth IGF, which is, I think, a very small number. So what is Youth School trying to do is to gather some of this kind of this region youth people, so it can educate about internet governance, so it can make a baseline, so when they come at their own country to make changes, maybe start youth IGF, we are encouraging them to make a movement, because with making some entity into your country, you can then proceed with educating, making more involvement, and sharing the internet governance things in your country. I am glad to say that because last year I was a youth participant in the Youth School, And after that, I get more involved in the CIDIC region, and now I'm CIDIC ambassador, and this year I'm finalizing the process for Youth IGF North Macedonia. So the last thing that I will mention is that also in this region, the local support is, let's say, little, maybe not, but yeah, I would say little. And not every country and every national IGF wants to work with the youth IGF. We have this kind of issues experienced, but yeah. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your intervention. It's really great to hear that you're working towards more youth IGFs. This week, there were 3 countries that approached me saying, we need a youth IGF, and we don't know where to start because there's no information available on the IGF website. There is no information available online, and people don't really know what documents to share. They can share the event, but they don't know what is the criteria and the requirements. So if the people who want to set up a youth IGF are in this room, but I also have their contact details. I can't see everyone here. Please do reach out to Marco, who has clearly more understanding about the processes and what are the requirements and how to move forward on this, which is extremely important that we now have this collaboration available and this understanding of how to move forward. So thank you very much. It's kind of worrying that we now had 3 interventions where people are saying, yeah, we don't know how to present IG, or the people do not know what IG is. Perhaps we need to start rediscussing or redeveloping the manner in how we raise awareness on this or how we want to engage the type of people. But in the meantime, I would like to turn to our next speaker, Jan Donal from Youth Take, please.
Thank you, Nadia, for introducing and possibility to join the panel, and thank you all for joining us. Good morning, all. It's my great pleasure to share with you the outcomes of our meeting, which happened in The Hague, Netherlands this year, where the UDIC happened. As you all probably know, UDIC is about to prepare young participants to join the EuroDIC session. Thanks to my personal experience, I can highly recommend you to participate in this amazing event. And back to the concrete outcomes of the meeting, we created some messages. We can divide them into 2 broad categories. The first category is digital ethics and inclusion, and the second category is cybersecurity, trust, and privacy. So first category, digital ethics and inclusion, and the first message from us. Internet governance processes and policies about youth need to be better communicated so that young people can be better informed and their participation strengthened through multi-stakeholder dialogue. Second message, emerging concerns online, such as hate speech, fake news, privacy, and cyberbullying, are not sufficiently discussed and taught at schools. We envision building a curriculum that is enforced by regulation, focusing on raising awareness of the online environment and developing necessary digital skills and digital literacy of the youngest students. Harmonization of states' ethics codes on designing algorithms using digital cooperation, including youth participation. That's our third message. And the fourth, we wish for the inclusion of teenagers through the Internet Governance Youth Ambassadors Program in the decision-making process on local, regional, and national level. Already existing youth parliaments should be strengthened to give the leaders of tomorrow voice today. And concerning the second broad category, cybersecurity, the first message is to reclaim privacy. We want governments to have proactive involvement instead of reactive measures, which are happening today. In order to raise awareness on data protection and online user safety, we call the governments to foster public discussion and mainstream digital literacy in basic public education. Second message, furthermore, we call on the private sector to make anonymity a viable option. Third, cybersecurity is a collective effort that requires a multi-stakeholder approach. We should achieve it with transparency while respecting our privacy. IoT is an important pillar in cybersecurity because it is in continuous exponential development with growing capabilities and threats. We must raise awareness, enrich, and update education curriculum on IoT security. And the last message from us is that regulators should encourage technology to be open source to foster transparency. And that's all from my side. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing the messages. Oh, I'm not talking to myself. Oh, thank you so much for sharing the messages from YouthDig. These are very strong statements, and it shows a clear path forward of what the youth were deciding on. And these are some of them very controversial topics, and some of them have like clear roots. And now we just need to decide how to advocate for them and how we're going to be able to implement them and move and stride forwards. But it's clear that here we can actually argue with each other about the manner in which we will move forward. And that's very exciting to see that youth are dedicated to set policies, to create their ideas and bring them forward. And that's what we're going to focus on. So I would like to move to our last speaker, Elisabeth Schauermann, who's the organizer of Youth IGF Summits. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Nadia. This is Elisabeth Schauermann speaking from the German Informatics Society. And as many of you already know, this year we found favorable circumstances to convene a global group of young people, over 120 from over 40 countries, to start the policy development process that heavily builds also on what the different initiatives have been doing for years in some cases. And our goal was to network people, network initiatives, but also produce a tangible outcome to come to the IGF and be able to work on our advocacy, see where we can be present. And I really have to commend all of the participants on site, but also remotely, who participated and contributed and made this a real success. And we really hope that we can try and transfer this to the forthcoming years. So in the course of 3 months, basically through webinars and then an on-site meeting in Berlin last Sunday, the participants identified 11 key messages. You can find them on the website igf2019, and you are very welcome to use them, translate them, spread them, and also reach out to us anytime if you need help with that. I have been reading those messages for quite often throughout this this IGF, so I will refrain them from that now, but I will give you a basic overlook of the main ideas that we touched upon. So obviously, one key thing, and I now borrow a claim from the disability movement, is nothing about us without us. So we were speaking about youth participation and the barriers that young people face in internet governance. Specifically, we were talking about digital education and how to skill people and what is needed to get young people to participate meaningfully in the digital age. And we also talked about child protection online and how children should be included in the discussion when it is about them. Our next theme was safety and security, as our participants have identified youth as a vulnerable group in many circumstances. They talked about critical infrastructure and made suggestions for cybersecurity strategies. Our third theme was access to the internet, but also an accessible internet once you're connected. Going forward, one main theme, we had 3 messages in this topic, was platform governance, ranging from regulation to self-regulation, to transparency especially, and also open data and research, going back to education as well. And our last theme was data and privacy, but mostly along the lines of AI, algorithmic decision-making, facial recognition. So our participants identified threats, but also made recommendations on how to approach those topics. And throughout all of these messages, what really stuck out was that we addressed over and over again, multi-stakeholder responsibility for all of these themes and topics and questions, and youth should definitely be consulted on all levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your intervention. And if you are interested to reading the key messages, they are up on the IGF Germany website, right? The 11 key messages?
So it's on our website, which is yigf.de.
Fantastic, and I highly encourage you. There are some really interesting points and comments, and if you haven't seen some of the ambassadors, they use these 11 key messages to go into different platforms and different discussions to bring these ideas forward and demanded that these were being discussed, and that was wonderful to see, and it's a great opportunity for people to be involved with. So I would like to ask if we can put up the plectica on the screen. So what we did while we were speaking about these different perspectives on the issues that were happening in the different regions, we set up a map about all the issues that were important to us, and also we outlined the 3 policy questions that we have associated to this session. So our first policy question was, which issues do you want to highlight as priority key points at the IGF to global stakeholders? The second policy question is, how can we improve involvement and return rates of youth at the IGF? And the last one is, which challenges do youth face to attend and participate at the IGF? So while we wait for the plectica to be on the screen and you can see the issues they're involved with, I would like to kind of move to point number 2, the policy question number 2. How can we improve involvement and return rates of youth at the IGF? Some things that we have noticed is that the people that do return every year are the people who come from organizations and have the capabilities and funding to be able to return to, often also from Western countries who have less problems with visas. And the people who do not return are people who are one-timers who are just new to the IG processes, are just learning more about it, and they are not returning back. Why does this happen? I actually wanted to tell a story regarding this, and this will give me an opportunity. This will give the speakers a little bit of an opportunity to make their, to clarify their thoughts on this question. Before I give you the floor to speak on it, and then open the floor to all of you. But I wanted to tell you a story, and I'm cautiously looking around the room because I'm talking about someone, is that the first time I went to an IGF, I went to Geneva, I had the worst time ever. I was a speaker on a panel in which I presented a particular point of view regarding the information disorder on fake news, and it was a very great session, and the moderator really involved me, but afterwards, there was nobody who was really acknowledging, or I didn't need any kind of a pat on my back or anything like that, but people ignored the statements that I said, and they really focused on other issues that, for example, that I counterpointed, completely ignoring what I was saying. I went to stakeholders and I asked them, can I contact you? Because I think that your work is aligned to mine, and they gave me fake email addresses. I got fake email addresses from stakeholders here, and I felt awful. I emailed them the same day, and I said, you know, my project aligns with yours, or I have a group of people who are working towards a cause that you are doing, so I think that they should be involved in your processes. Or I said, oh, you are working on a particular project, I'd love for you to invite you to my university to talk more about it. And I got fake email addresses. I did not feel welcome being here. But there was one person in this entire event that really kind of changed the process for me. And I have to come back to the comment that Ellen made, that at that moment in time, I felt there was an absence of inspiration platform for youth so they can have aspirations to become stakeholders. There were 2 people who actually made me stay, but one of them is Michael, who's in this room, who introduced me to YCIG, who's sitting over there. And he really encouraged me and pushed me to get involved, to have the courage to walk up to speakers. But I want to talk about someone who's luckily not in the room, and I'm not going to mention him because I don't know if you would like me to, but he made all the difference. This was one person who did not know me. I walked into a session. He saw that I looked lost, came to sit next to me and said, "Hi, my name is." We went into this session, of which I knew nothing about. It was about ICANN, and ICANN is complicated if you're not any familiar to the process at all. So I just sit there, and I'm just looking at this ICANN event, and this person comes up to me and says, that person is from that board, and they're talking about this issue. This issue is important because of XYZ. They're talking about IPv6. I have no idea what that means. He explains IPv6 is, they talk about IoT, and I at least since then, I have asked him at least 10 times more, what is IoT? What does it stand for? And every time, without hesitation, he explains every time again. That makes all the difference to a young person to want to return to do better and to push the other stakeholders who do give false details, who do not take you seriously, because there is this one person who inspires you to teach other people. And he inspires me, and Michael inspires me to come back to YCIG every year. They inspire me to take the time to explain to someone, oh, I was in this session, and I look, does that person look confused? I see young people sitting alone. I come and sit next to them. I say, hey, my name is, I'm here from YCIG. Can I explain to you something? This type of mentorship leads other people to come back because they feel included. Many of you are able to return back because you come as ISAC ambassadors and you have a community of a group and you say, hey, let's all go together. Some people are here from Youth Dig. You come together and say, hey, we know each other, and you feel welcome. We need to create this platform and this environment for youth that are also coming as individuals and youth that come from areas in which we are, who are not familiar to the IG process and don't know where their topic fits in. I've met people who studied business but are not consultants. I have met software engineers who really work on coding but don't really fit within the policy sector. But they come back because they found their community. And I hope that YCIG, but also you as an individual can be that type of mentor. So having spoken about my personal experience regarding this, I believe that our involvement in return rates is about how we decide to get involved. Whether or not we are a young person or if we're an older person, it's about reaching out to people and giving them the feeling that they're being acknowledged and listened to. So I would like to look at my panel here and ask them whether or not you have any comments or ideas of how we can improve involvement and return rates of youth at the IGF.
Well, having tried to facilitate exactly that, I definitely have some thoughts on it. I mean, it always helps to be seen or see yourself as part of a group and as of a network. And for this, such sessions and youth programs are great, but we also cannot deny imbalances in power and funding that then also reflect on the visibility of young people or how they are treated by others. We can be nice to each other all we want, but we also have to be quite realistic that without a stringent advocacy strategy and how we move forward and really pushing that topic over and over again, people will always be excluded, and we don't want to exclude them because this process is designed to be open. There are just hurdles. They might not be visible when you first look at them. So. But I would be super happy to hear not only from the two of you, but also from the room, how you managed to do this. I'm coming from a very privileged position, and I'm of course don't see every aspect of how it can be difficult or easy to participate.
Thank you very much for your comment. I was wondering if perhaps Ufa, who is joining us online, perhaps she has any ideas, because she mentioned a few issues earlier that was related to the African youth. Ufa, I don't know if she is available.
Hello?
Yes. Hello, we can hear you.
Quickly, for the African youth, like I mentioned earlier, most of our challenges have to do with understanding the issues. The internet governance agenda is not quite popular here, so I feel like unless we can solve the problem of awareness and understanding, there's a lot that we can do after that. And then participating, and then helping ourselves to understand the issues. At Digital Grassroots, that's the organization that I co-founded along with some other youth from the region and outside the African region. We do a lot of work with ensuring and promoting the internet governance awareness for young people from underserved communities. So basically, and then matching them up with industry experts for mentorship, because it does a lot to have someone that you can talk to that will answer your questions, that will explain what the acronyms are, that will point out what meetings you should remotely participate in, what mailing list discussions you should join in, and basically things like that. That actually really helps a lot. So that kind of mentorship or that kind of connection is extremely helpful sometimes.
Thank you very much. I'm just looking back at my panel. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment?
I would add here, similar what I mentioned in my introduction for the, well, I don't know what, last year when I was ISOC ambassador, when I came back home, I was very motivated, and that's why I started the process of creating a youth IGF at my country. But I can mention that there are a lot of problems that the youth, when come back, I'm talking from my region, from Southeast Europe. Not everybody in the country or the institutions and the companies are, how to say, welcome to support and do something like this. Because first of all, when you said that you are youth, they are not interested and they think that this is not serious. And second, they are not interested, I don't know, in promoting these kind of things and supporting this, because they do not make money of this, or it's not their primary business, or they don't want it in the end. So what I suppose is everybody can do something after this kind of events, IGF, Eurodic, CDIC, every kind of internet governments, because you make a lot of contacts there, and these contacts can help you. Because I can say that if I didn't make the contacts with the ISOC ambassadors last year, I wouldn't come with the idea to create a youth IGF in my country, because they helped me a lot with contacts and how to organize, how to do things, and how to go to the institution or some companies that may help you. Of course, you need a local support at some level, but my intuition is to push it and make it happen, because if we do not make it, nobody else will make it for us.
Thank you very much. Jan, you wanted to also comment?
Thank you, Nadia. I really enjoyed that my other colleagues and panelists mentioned mentorship. This is exactly what I want to talk about and what I missed. I already participated in ICANN meeting, and for the newcomers it can be very overwhelming. A lot of sessions is ongoing at the same time. There are a lot of acronyms, quite similar as here. Would be really amazing to have one mentor who could guide you through the whole program. For example, if you have a legal background, the mentor could guide you which sessions are the best for you. He could introduce you to panelists, or basically you would feel more welcome, and not like Nadia well mentioned at the beginning, that sometimes the newcomers they don't really feel welcome. And second thing which I want to mention is that it's not only about participating one event or second event, it's really important what's happening in between. So your personal participation should show that you did something. So for example, if you didn't hear, ICANN has a very nice program for youngsters. It's called Next Gen. And what are you doing together with the mentor? You are preparing presentation, and during the ICANN meeting itself, you are presenting what you worked before on, and that's what I can recommend. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your recommendations. So for all the people that just came into the room, all the issues that we discussed over the last nearly an hour are up on the Plectica, so you have all the ideas and thoughts that have come from our panelists. I just wanted to open this briefly to the floor for, we'll take 3 questions at the moment, and then I would like to move to the next policy question. So in which then you will have a larger floor to talk about the challenges everybody faces. So I'd like to have 3 questions. Who has any questions? There is one over here. There is 2, 3. So in that order, please. If you would like to, I don't think I have a mic here, but please step up to one of the microphones at the table.
Feel free. Thank you so much. Thank you for offering your seat first. Hello, everyone. My name is Ghayur Bauri. I'm from Afghanistan, and I represent Internet Society Afghanistan chapter, and as well as the national IGF in Afghanistan. Likely, I really appreciate those who support me to come here as my first global IGF, and since last 3 years, I've been one of the key organizing committee member of national IGF in Afghanistan. So, like, experiencing the global one is my first time, with lots of experience. I had a question. Since last 3 years that we are organizing national IGF, we covered the youth IGF in one of our parallel sessions, like for 2 to 3 hours. But this time, since we noticed a very prominent and tangible outcome from our IGF events, so and especially that attracted our youth. So this time we have planned to organize a youth IGF very separately. It was supposed to happen on 16 November, but due to this global IGF that most of our team were traveling. So we had a bit financial issues. We were obligated to postpone. Most probably in the mid-December, it's going to happen. My question is to those colleagues who have already organized youth IGF, is about the topics you have spoken. We also cover those topics, like if we talk about the cybersecurity or about the IoT or about the fake news or about digital literacy. So I think these kinds of topics are not always in context to some areas or geographic locations like in Afghanistan. So what are the most prominent and effective topics that should be covered that youth can absorb and can learn from it? If anyone of our speakers or anyone who can answer this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question. Can I take the second question and the third question first before we answer this?
Hi, I'm Elliot from Australia, here as part of the ISOC IGF Youth Ambassador Program. Australia doesn't have a fantastic youth IGF presence. In establishing youth IGFs, particularly in large, diverse countries, Australia is a big place and Indonesia is a big place, Germany is a big place. How do youth IGFs balance geographic diversity and diversity even within the country, particularly from youth, whether it be youth who are participating from universities or are perhaps still in school? I'd be interested to hear how that sort of diversity is tackled.
Thank you very much for your question. Here on the right.
Hello, it's Umar Khan from Pakistan. Rather to ask a question, I want to comment on your second question, that how can we improve the participation of the youth at IGF. First of all, thank to you, Nadia, and your team, because I'm here, just of 2 people here, and because I haven't heard about IGF before you told me 1 month ago. Basically, you and my uncle made it in reality to come to the IGF. Before this, I haven't the idea. I know what I'm planning, that I'm the only one from my province to participate in the IGF. From the whole Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, I'm participating. Beside going to spoke about the IGF, I will sit with the stakeholders, with my government and the IT companies, and I will also brief my youth about the IGF. And I would like, inshallah, I will try my best to have have maximum participation in the Poland, because the way you made for me here in the Germany, I would like to have the same for my youth, for my country, young people in the Poland. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I would like to, I'm cautiously looking at my panel. Perhaps you can address the questions, but did you want to ask a question or make a comment?
I have to go soon, unfortunately, so I wanted to make a important intervention about YCIG. So if you want, you can address the questions, and then if it's okay with everyone, I would like to request the floor.
Would you like to make your interventions first?
Sure, I would like to touch upon the first two questions. Regarding which topics are to be addressed in a youth IGF, I strongly believe that those topics have to come from the young people themselves. This is a longer process. You have to figure out a way to ask them or to be open to their suggestions, but only by that way you can ensure that this is relevant to them, especially in a context that is regional or national. Those are very specific sometimes, and I would just try and cater to that as much as possible. And to the question on how to balance diversity, I mean, Germany is not that big, still we didn't do a good job in our national IGF this year. This is super hard, because apart from trying to address everybody and gathering enough funds to also make them, be able to travel throughout the country, there is little you can do like in a second, but I believe if you make your involvement sustainable and you can try to reach more people over time.
Thank you very much. I heard that Ufa, who's online with us, wanted to make an answer. Wanted to make an answer?
The first question and the second question, but I feel that they're interrelated. In Nigeria, we had the Nigerian Youth IGF this year as well. And Nigeria is a very, very big country with a very huge population and a very, very diverse community. But what we did was that we focused mainly on the participation of students and young professionals in the Nigerian Youth IGF. And also, what I want to say for the first question is that when organizing Youth IGF or basically trying to lead youth in internet governance, you should not focus so much on defining what they should participate in. Rather, you should give them the broad overview of the internet governance ecosystem and map out ways that they could contribute. That way, they are able to define topics that interest them and then follow through on that part. If not, you'll just be forcing on issues to them. However, if they're able to know what interests them, what topics, what organizations they would like to follow their activities, what discussions they would like to jump on and things like that, it will be easier for them to have more intentional contributions.
Thank you very much for your comments. Before, I would actually like to move to the third policy question, but before this, Michael wanted to make an intervention about YCIG.
Thank you so much, Nadia. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Ogia. Just quickly, I've been involved in YCIG since 2015, and between 2016 and 2017, I was on the interim steering committee. And a few things that I just want to bring up quickly. It is involving both the second policy question that you raised, Nadia, as well as something much larger. And basically, first of all, when we're talking about young people, we need to take something out of the lexicon, and that is that young people do not care about internet governance. Young people care. Time after time, survey after survey, we see that young people all around the world care about privacy, care about security, they care about these things. So I think it's just really important in terms of communication from our point of view to not hurt our own argument and our own cause. That's number one. Number two, resources. There are plenty of resources. I know because I've collected them. They are currently on the YCIG website, and there also is a better, longer, and more thorough version on the Eurodig wiki, so FYI. Number three is number three is about the importance of the national and regional and sub-regional initiatives. It is difficult to get young people here. It is, especially since the fact that it's been in Europe for the past 3 years and it's going to be in Europe next year as well. I absolutely understand the intervention that we heard from our colleague in Africa. The fact is, it is difficult for young people to get involved sometimes in the NRIs because they're not necessarily willing to work with young people. The best kind of antidote that I have to that, solutions to that, is to continue to organize ourselves and maintain that solidarity that comes from self-organizing and that comes from especially collecting best practices, because obviously not every situation is similar. But having said that, I'm genuinely concerned about the future of the YCIG. I cannot thank Nadia enough for and this is not meant to be just self-congratulatory. She really took over for the YCIG in this, after me, and we could have essentially had a leadership vacuum if it wasn't for her, and her term is ending soon. I'm really concerned about, how the YCIG will continue going forward and how it will continue to support existing youth initiatives. I call on anybody in this room, clearly you care about these issues, to step up if it's part of, or if this is something that interests you, if you have the time, because I really am concerned about what's going to be happening in the years coming forward. Will the YCIG also face a problem where it could die, it could become inactive? That's something that it really takes tireless work. I know because I did it, and Nadia has been absolutely incredible for the past 2 years. And so I really want to thank you for that, Nadia, and encourage everyone here, anyone that's part of the YCIG, to make sure that it does not die, because youth issues and the youth voices absolutely need to be included and absolutely need to be amplified. And if we're not going to do it, nobody else will. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, for your comments. You gave an interlude into a notice that I wanted to give. The YCIG now has their elections, and it's now your opportunity. If you are dedicated on improving youth participation at the IGF, you can apply. My statutory term ends, which means that I'm not allowed to actually go again for elections. So there's a 2-year maximum time that I can sit on the steering committee. I can still be involved, and I love being involved, and I want to present to you some projects that I have for the future. But my term ends here, and after me, if you do not apply, then we do not have a representative for youth that sits in a dynamic coalition's meetings. We do not have a representative that will attend MAC meetings as a dynamic coalition representative. We think it's extremely important that you step up and provide this opportunity for people, and you're not alone. Where Michael, I succeeded from Micah, Michael is still here in these sessions contributing. So will I come back next year in Poland. I will be there to help you and support you throughout your term. You're not alone. We are here to mentor you and make sure that you succeed to empower other youth and develop other youth to either come to the IGF or to participate in communities around you, because we believe in you and we want to foster this development. So please, if you do know people in your community you think they can really do something internationally, if you do not have the time yourself or the resources, if you know people who can want to learn, because this is a learning process. We don't expect you to be the leader already, but this is a learning process. If you want to come and learn from not only us, but also the mentors that we have, this is your chance now. The elections are open. You can join us on the YCIG Facebook page and register your name and nominate yourself to be part. It's 1 person per region, so you apply and compete against your region. So there is no contestants for my region. I'm from Western Europe and the other groups. But that being said, I would like to move on to the last policy question. Which challenges do youth face to attend and participate at the IGF? And before I open it up to the audiences that are here, I would actually like to ask how many of you have actually tried to join in the remote participation? Because I tried to do it earlier today, and it's really hard. I can do Adobe Illustrator, I can design things on Photoshop, but I do not understand how to navigate the remote session. It took me a good 20 minutes to half an hour, and if you're not dedicated to the cause, and my dedication to the cause is to make sure that I'm capable to speak with people who are joining me remotely, then if you are a young person and it takes you longer than 5 minutes to try to access the internet, then that's never going to happen. I have a lot of colleagues that are joining us from Kurdistan, Afghanistan, who wanted to be here in person, and they're not capable of logging in because they only have a mobile phone. They have a mobile phone and they cannot join remotely. This is complicated. So what challenges do you face in your regions? What do you face to be able to attend and participate at the IGF? I understand that we had questions about visas already, and this is definitely something that we need to look towards the MAC to see if we can actually move the IGF beyond Europe. And I look towards you to encourage also your governments when you're at IGFs. Can we please host the IGF, the global IGF? But then I open the floor to you. What are your thoughts and ideas? There's one hand here. Is there anyone else who has a comment or a question? A second one? Let's just start with these two speakers, interventions, and then we'll move beyond that.
Hello. So everybody can hear me, right? So this is Veronica Arroyo from the Youth Observatory. ISOC Youth, a special group of interests. I want to highlight that even though we all pass through some difficult situation, as you mentioned before, we had bad experience. I have to highlight as well that we all already had good experiences as well. And a good part or a good way to have those good experiences is to belong to groups. So here, at least, for example, you've been seeing a really good, sorry, I'm just sick today, so I cannot speak properly. But for example, in the case of the Youth Observatory and the Youth SIG, which is the same thing, it's good the support that you get from a community, from the group that you have. Even though you are not able to come, then you have the support of other people online that will always be there for you. We've organized youth IGFs in other parts of the world, and it has been very valuable, the opportunity to have friends like you, who care about the same issue. The experience is much better when you belong to a group. And I just want to invite you to read the Youth Atlas, which is something we did, you might already know this, and that has some stories of how our stories, basically. So you can take this as an example, but I want to also highlight with the problems. You mentioned it, visas. Yeah, that's quite important, and it's really important when you have a community, a global community, and you come from developing countries, and that's a point. Then the next point is funding. It's really difficult. Maybe for developed countries, it's really easy to get funding because you have a lot of companies that do social work, but when you come from developing countries, that's very difficult. They do not allocate things for youth IGFs. You have to have really good connections to get those fundings. And obviously enterprises won't pay you because they don't see something there. This moves to my third point, opportunities. The Youth Observatory proposed 3 workshops for this IGF. For the first time, our topics were not about inclusion of youth in the IGF. For the first time, we proposed things related to artificial intelligence, about disinformation and problems with content. I'm sorry, I'm really sick right now. And we proposed things that really matter, that really we care. As Michael mentioned it before, internet governance is something there, but we care about specific topics. But none of the 3 workshops were accepted. Some of the how can I say, the reviews that we've received was that there were no enough diversity in our group, but if you read the names of the people who were there listed as speakers, it was clearly easy to see that people were from different countries. You just needed to read the names. So we faced this for the first time because the other past IGFs, we asked for more inclusion, we talk about the future of work and things like that, and then where sessions were approved. But this time when we wanted to propose and start talking about serious stuff that really affects us, we didn't have the opportunity. So I think opportunities here for us is really important. Why? Because if I say that I have a session on artificial intelligence or a session on hate speech, things like that, then I can get funding. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. It's extremely important to understand for us how can we actually participate in the process, and if our submissions are being rejected, then we need to understand how and why, and in the manner we can improve or changing mindsets.
There is another one.
I'm confused now. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi everyone, this is Jenna from Asia Organizations. I am the community engagement lead of this company, but I'm also the coordinator of NetMission Academy, which is an online academy for youth in Asia Pacific. And at the same time, also the coordinator of the Asia Pacific Youth IGF. I want to address on the challenges that I find as a youth to participate in IGF, which is how we as a youth to participate IGF as contributor. Because I just give a really brief review on how I participate the regional IGF or other academy in Asia Pacific. Let's say, for example, in the Asia Pacific Regional IGF, youth can actually contribute and participate in the process as workshop organizers, because there's quite different initiative. We take action to submit workshop. Instead of sitting in the room commenting or giving an opinion, we actually be the leader of certain workshops to actually contribute in the entire internet governance process in that way. Other than that, I would like to mention the Asia Pacific Internet Governance Academy that we have in Asia Pacific also. The NetMission ambassador actually involved in this academy not as participants only, but as the youth facilitators, for certain sessions also. So I would say I find it's kind of challenging to engage in IGF sometimes as a youth from Asia Pacific. Let's say it, for example, I find it hard just to speak on one of the panel as a youth, as a woman from Asia Pacific. So I think this is one of the challenges that youth are facing in Internet Governance Forum, because there's like, I see the notes online on the platform saying that because of lack of knowledge or lack of opportunity, maybe because there are several reasons or factors behind that make us really challenging to engage in that way. But I think we have a value as a youth to contribute as workshop organizers or as a speaker also. So I think that's the point that we can put effort in working on, like what I also mentioned last year in the same setting also. In this youth community, if we want to improve our youth involvement in Internet Governance Forum, maybe within YCIG, we can first of all ensure or improve the diversity of our youth community also. Maybe give more opportunity for youth from Africa or from Asia Pacific or Latin America to speak up more. So within our youth community, we can have a more completed view of the youth community, but not in certain part of the world only. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, for the last 2 years, YCIG has been very Western focused because we don't always have people elected from older regions, and then whoever is on the steering committee then takes over those regions and try their best to reach out to those communities. And of course, we would prefer having people from those communities reaching out and collaborating with us across borders, across cultures, to be able to achieve things. Are there any other comments or questions about challenging? You wanted to? Did you? All right. Would you like to make a comment?
Hello, everybody. My name is Margarita. I'm representing Social Impact private company that we work with the global competence and teenagers, but by teenagers a bit younger, 9 to 14. But being in youth organizations myself, when I was in the youth category, and also working with a lot of youth up till now, I'm an educator. I want to share a few thoughts on how, first of all, to address Michael's point, the potential issue of having more people participating in this initiative, and as well as it targets other questions as well right away. So the problem with the youth participating in the initiatives is usually motivation, or the lack of it, or not understanding what is the motivation behind this or that initiative. If young people do not see why they have to input extra work, they already have homework, right? We have to remember that. They will not do it. And there are very few adults, definitely very few parents, who would explain to them the value of this or that initiative or project. So having some kind of roadmap to their potential benefits or their career options in the future, if they are a part of Youth IGF, for example, and presenting it comprehensively on the website, or you mentioned Facebook page, I don't know if there is a website, making it easier for young people to access this information in infographics format, something very up to the point, without a lot of text, that will hook their attention. That's number one. And number two, following up on that. So you were asking, this gentleman was asking how to know what young people want to talk about. And I agree that we have to ask them, but we also have to guide them, because they don't know everything and they are not following the news. They don't know the challenges that exist in the digital world. So how to guide them is also our responsibility. And in this case, we can have leaders like yourselves over here to establish meetings with the youth that happen here. I know there are some meetings in the cafeteria, in the canteen, but I was not invited, for example. It's my first time here, and I had no idea about that. And I would like to join, and I would like to listen as well. So having comprehensive information, just like a stand. Here we have a lunch meeting with the youth. Come join, participate. This kind of easy directions for the youth. And I'm talking about myself. I'm not in the category of youth in terms of age, but even for me, it's difficult to understand where to go, who can I talk with, and who is responsible for youth and who is not. So physical directions in the space, in the venue, are also very important. And it's difficult for me, and imagine for a person who is 20, 22, and the first time in a huge conference like this, it's very overwhelming. And there should be more support on that. So motivation in terms of why they should be here is one, and direction, more guidance is number two. So the second point I wanted to share briefly is people who work with the youth, there are quite a lot of us here, they also have a lot of access. We have a lot of access, and we can share more information. So creating some kind of community for people who work with the youth already, and we can share this information on maybe bi-monthly basis. Look, there will be another forum next year, so you can upload your questions online on Padlet or whatever tool you're using for this conference, and your question will be answered, and this is where it will lead to. So having this comprehensive information that can come from us as well. So I'm pretty sure that since we're all here, and those who work with the youth would be interested in that too. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for your contribution. It's very valuable to know that we have support that goes just beyond youth and peer-to-peer learning and peer-to-peer structures. So thank you very much for letting us know that you're here and that we can reach out to you. You raised some really excellent points, and some of them, there's definitely things that we can address here that can be improved for Poland. And creating the community of people working with the youth. So we have our Facebook page, we also have a website. And even if you're not a young person underneath the age of 35, you can still join YCIG as an observer, and you would still be able to send all your details over the mailing list and as part of the Facebook group. So any classes that you're giving, any workshops, any webinars, we try to promote as much as possible as well as news that is happening in your regions. So I kind of see you looking at me that you wanted to make a follow-up, so I'll briefly give you the word before giving the word to Jennifer, and I'm afraid that in 5 minutes we need to close the session, and I encourage you all to stay so that we can take the annual YSIG photo, which is when we remind the IGF that youth are a big stakeholder, and we take a picture together to show them how many there of us are. Sadly, however, many of us had to leave already. So I know there's about 30, 40 people who have apologized for not being here, but then we'll just add them in the comments saying, you know, we wish you were here, but please make your follow-up.
Thank you. Just one more point I wanted to mention following your story on how you got involved in the forum. Leadership or training, personal development, professional development training is something that interests youth a lot. And I hear a lot of discussions here focusing on youth have, they state the problem, but they don't know how to address, how to find a solution in a sustainable way that can be actually applied. So your story is actually an answer to that. Students are interested, youth are interested in getting more training in professional and personal development. And by being here, it's already automatically provided by the leaders like yourself. Maybe it's not structured yet, but it definitely should be, and it could be one of the motivations for them to join as well. And this is not, unfortunately, highlighted anywhere in the forum, at least from what I've noticed. But that's a very important, crucial point for them and for the future of the youth IGF.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Jennifer?
Yeah, I'll try to make it short because I think you made a lot of the points I was going to make, so that's great. So I'm Jennifer Boucher from R&W Media. We build digital communities with young people all around the world. So that's why I'm interested in youth issues, other than just the fact that I care also. I come from a public health background, actually, and I've lived through the International HIV/AIDS conferences for time after time. They're every 2 years, and they're a huge deal. And so I just have some tips and tricks, if that's useful. So indeed, a kind of youth zone is really, really helpful, a dedicated space that's attractive to young people. Also, the communications work, which also Michael talked about, is really crucial, making sure that it's really, you know, UX designed and not corporate looking and boring is really important. Yeah, and some of the youth IGF communications isn't all that sexy, actually, to be honest with you. So think about your users. Who are you targeting? You know, speak to them in their voice and in their colors and their branding styles. They'll listen to you a lot more. Use guerrilla marketing. You know, they're coming to Germany. The IGF is in Germany. You want to attract young local people. You know, do papering. You know, do marketing to them. Go online. So those are really, you know, useful and cheap strategies. And you guys have energy, which is really great. Also, in terms of visas, so that's just a horror scenario. And the right to freedom of movement is one of the most violated rights around the world, which, yeah, just angers me a lot. But we have seen a couple little things work. One is actually, if you know ahead of time where the conference is going to be, hook up with the government and the embassy in your country. So if it's the German embassy, let's say, you know, you're in, I don't know, Cameroon or whatnot, get a connection, start talking to the staff there, and when it gets rejected, shame the ambassador on internet, on Twitter. It worked for us with Yemen. Systematically, we have problems. The young person rejected, put the name of the ambassador in the tweet, you know, really made a big deal. Well, the decision was reversed. So we can do something, but we really have to work hard at it and be gutsy. I think I'm almost done. And then indeed the leadership, the mentoring, having a structure for supporting young people before, during, and after the conference is really, really crucial. And link it indeed to the things that they need, but also in terms of what they can get out of the sessions. And I'll close with one final thing. Don't ignore the little people. You know, in strategic influencing work, we always want to target the minister or the policymaker and so forth. Don't forget the person who's in charge of writing the content for the website, the person who's organizing the track sessions. Target them as well. Most of the time, a lot of the stuff that they slip in won't be taken out. So you can get youth visibility right from the beginning in some of the content that's put out without going through a lot of trouble.
Thank you very much for your contribution. It's the warrior style that I like about it, and it's really energizing, naming and shaming these ambassadors. Wow, I think, you know, to get to your cause, to get to your goals, we need to be gutsy. Thank you very much for your contribution. I'm going to be super cheeky. There is one comment there in the back that I would like to take. It's been a very quiet corner there, so just this one comment.
Thank you very much. My name is Innocent. I'm from Uganda. I am an ISOC IGF Youth Ambassador. I just have kind of homework for us. We've talked of so many challenges, but seems most of us are going back without knowing how we're going to start. I do realize that we have so many initiatives in our countries. I love the fact that these initiatives are there, but how do we coordinate these initiatives to see that we are actually working towards achieving the same goal? Like, what is the cooperation? I do believe that it would be more sensible if these initiatives are working together than the divided format of work that we are using. That's what I've really seen. Like for us in Africa, most of these initiatives don't seem to have a pivot point where they actually meet and be like, you know what, okay, we're addressing this. Let's start from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it is really important. One of the things that we focus on is partnership and collaboration. So I highly encourage to let them know that YCIG exists and to come and join our platform so we know about all the opportunities so we then can connect these people. As it is now 1 p.m. and I don't want to stand between you and your lunch, I just wanted to remind you to please stay for the picture. And also, we are collecting your thoughts and ideas. It's in a Plectica. We will leave that open for you to peruse, to send to your friends, to your family, to the people in your communities, to add to those ideas that we just talked about. Also find your solutions towards those, and then we will present that in the official report that will be handed over to the IGF. I briefly wanted to talk about, 3 projects for Poland. So, of course, our youth expert list is still open. Please add your name. Please tell your friends to add your name. In April, once we all submit our session names, we will be reaching out to other session organizers to remind them, youth are in stakeholders. We need to have youth experts on panels. So please be involved with that. We had, in Paris, we tried to set up a program in which YCIG hosts the IGF Newbies program. This year, there was no one that came in terms of, there was no one that actually organized it to present. So there was a room full of people where there was no presenter, and a lot of people were really shocked about that the IGF for Newbies was empty. So we are going to lobby that we get to host this. And Jan's comment about perhaps providing a mentorship program and also the comments from the room. If you are passionate about supporting this initiative, please come and talk to me after the session so that we can try and facilitate this and see how we can move forward and, join yourself as mentors, or if you can recommend someone, that would be wonderful to move forward as a project. And lastly, what you mentioned regarding skill building in Poland, I had the blessing to study in Poland. I did my master's there. So regarding a venue, perhaps I have the opportunity to provide a venue that we can use to do skills development before the IGF. We do not have funding, we do not have any program, but what we do have is a lot of intentions and goodwill. So if you are working on these things, if you are capable of providing these skills and would like to work with me towards setting up something like this, please do reach out to me, because that's something that we also wanted to look towards too. That being said, thank you so much all for joining our session, and I want to thank very much all our speakers who were able to join us today here in person, but also remotely. I would like to thank my co-moderator, Virginia, who's been very silent, but she's been updating the Plectica to make sure that the issues are being discussed. The Y6 steering committee couldn't be here, but they say hello and they send their best wishes. I would like to thank our remote moderators, Vanessa and Tibian, for their work. And the system is complex, but they make it easy for us to work with the people who are not able to be here. I would also like to thank very much our transcriber. This is a live transcription, so if you are listening to what I'm saying, if you could write your name so we can thank you. Hi, Andrew Smith. Thank you so much for transcribing. We really appreciate all your hard work. Also, thank you very much to all the translators and the staff that work here, the IGF Secretariat for facilitating the dynamic coalitions, and of course, you as your audience. Your topics and discussions are important to us, and it only helps us to make the IGF 2020 more accessible to youth. So with this, I would like to close the session. Thank you all very much, and please come forward to join us for the picture.